if we're talking about comedy and we're talking about criminals and we're talking about cancel culture and Yiddish newspapers, I have to tell you a joke. This was actually one big elaborate setup for a joke. So it's a famous joke. The story goes, Meyer Lansky, the famous Jewish gangster, calls up the Forward, the Yiddish newspaper back in the day, and he says, this is Meyer Lansky. If you write one more story about me, I'm going to burn your building down. So the head of the Forwards, he's like, Mr. Lansky, we're the Forwards, the Times, the Post, every newspaper in New York's writing stories about you. What do you care about us? He said, my mother reads your paper. There you have it, folks. Moving on, segment number 2. When someone is guilty, and may have gotten away with it up until now, when you have an opportunity to effectively punish them, cancel them, call them out, how do we handle a client that is guilty? And for that, we turn to a famous clip. We showed it many years ago, but here we go. Clip number 2.
And ladies and gentlemen of the jury, the prosecution is not going to get that man today. No. Because I'm going to get him. My client, the Honorable Henry T. Fleming, should go right to jail. The son of a is guilty. That man is guilty. That man is a slime. He is a slime. If he's allowed to go free, then something really wrong is going on.
Mr. Kirkland, you are out of order.
You're out of order. You're out of order. The whole trial is out of order. They're out of order. That man, that crazy, depraved man. It's just a show. It's a show. Let's make a deal. Let's make a deal. Hey, Frank, you want to make a deal? I got an insane judge who likes to beat out of women. What do you want to give me, Frank? 3 weeks probation?
Damn it, you like sex?
You son of... You're supposed to stand for something. You're supposed to protect people, but instead you murder them. You killed McCullough. You killed him. Hold it. Hold it. I just completed my opening statement.
He's not playing you, is he?
So obviously that's a little bit extreme. But Mr. Brofman, I turn to you and ask you this following question. Obviously, everybody is entitled to representation. And everyone's entitled to fair representation and good representation and the best representation. Is there anyone you would not represent?
Well, that is a scene from And Justice for All. And the follow-up to that is the lawyer was immediately disbarred and put in a mental institution. But that's Dustin Hoffman, I think it was important for him to win an award. Al Pacino, sorry. So the answer to your question is I've been asked that question a lot. And in my world, no one is ever, happy to hear what I do for a living until they need me. And then, I'm become very important to them because generally I'm the only person in the lifeboat with them by the time the dust settles. But to answer your question, my parents were, my grandparents were murdered in Auschwitz simply because they were Jews. So if you're asking me, would I today represent someone who is charged with an act of terrorism or an act of virulent anti-Semitism, I think the answer is no. And I want to stress by saying they do need a good lawyer. And I think the more heinous and vilified a person is, the more they really need a Ben Brafman. But I don't need to lend myself to that person for 2 reasons. One, I don't know that I could live with myself. And 2, I don't think they would get the best of what I need to offer to do a really good job where you, A, care about the person, and B, want to get them exonerated. And I don't want to become like, Al Pacino in my old age, where, I stand up and say, that guy, he killed those Jews and you should send him to jail for the rest of his life. I don't want to be in that position. So that's my answer. In terms of crime, I've represented, some really bad people or people accused of really bad things. When I win, it's generally because the government has done something wrong. They've either over-indicted or charged an offense, or they have credibility issues. In every acquittal I think I've ever had, there is generally a reason I can point to. And it's not you had a better lawyer and the government didn't have a good lawyer. I generally think there's a reason, and it's generally an interesting reason and a good reason.
Karen, is there anyone you wouldn't represent, or is there
Yeah.
anyone you've represented that at a certain point in time you say, we're done?
Yes. Well, first of all, I want to say I have a really fortunate to have an amazing group of colleagues at my firm, and it's very collaborative, and we sit around and talk about opportunities and what's a yes and a no. But for us, the no's are no child pornographers, no child sex assault, no one who's accused of a horrific and heinous hate crime, and I guess the one that we're the most public about, because there was a documentary and we were in it, so it's not like it's a big secret, is we were hired by Roger Ailes to represent him when he was first accused by Gretchen Carlson of sexually harassing her. We took the assignment. We were not Fox watchers. We really didn't know much about his personal life. When we found out 4 weeks into the case that he was lying to us through his teeth, and that every single thing he told us was not true, and everything they wanted us to say about him was a lie, we walked. So we'll say that you say it, but it's not coming out of my mouth if I don't know it to be true.
Rabbi, is there anyone who, if they came to you and said, I'd like to come pray with you over the high holidays, you'd say, you are not welcome because of what you've done?
I wouldn't put it in those words, but I'd make
Any
sure
words
they
you
get
want.
the message. Because I do believe that even if someone's absolutely guilty, and I'll stand by what I said earlier, they still are a child of God's. That doesn't mean they don't deserve to be in prison, and it does not mean that they don't deserve to be punished, or at least to protect innocent people. But I don't necessarily have to be their partner in that process. Let it between me, them, and God. If someone came to me, and I will say that people have come to me, I will not assume that they're guilty, especially if they've not found guilty. But if I get a sense that they're looking to me to somewhat cleanse themselves or their conscience, I don't really feel remorse. What I will say is, listen, Rosh Hashanah is coming, Yom Kippur is coming. You have an opportunity to speak to God, and God should protect and bless you. But why do I have to necessarily be a part of it? Now, if they say to me, hey, that means that you see me as guilty, I'll say, no. I have my priorities. I have things that I think where I can be of help. I've given you good advice. If you want, I'll give you a book to read about Rosh Hashanah and how you do tshuva, how you repent, and how you ask for forgiveness. And I would hope that they would follow it. But in most cases, let's be honest, a lot of people are not going to follow it. They're just trying to find a way out.
No, I'm asking something a little different. Someone
Okay.
that, and take away the danger. If someone's an active danger to other people in the congregation, it's a different story. Is there anyone that because of the level of their crime or what they've done that was so terrible that you'd say they don't deserve to be in a synagogue over the holidays?
It's a tough one because synagogue is not owned by the rabbi or by the congregants. If they're not a danger to anyone and they've done a great crime, why shouldn't they have a right to speak to God? Now, I would probably not be the person unless, as I said, there was danger involved.
No danger, no danger,
No
no
danger?
threat. No threat.
Let them come to synagogue and pray to God and speak their heart out. That would be my approach.
Okay. Jeff, 2 words on this, and then we move on to the next segment.
The answer is yes, and there's a whole list that included it in Mr. Brofman's and Karen's assessment. And again, it's a collaborative discussion that we have at our firm. And Ben made a great point. There's some cases that your heart's never going to be in, and if your heart's not in the case, you have no right taking it.